Hello and welcome to Lore of the Cards, the series that looks to find the lore hidden in your Hearthstone deck. Well, this time that's not quite the truth, as today we won't be looking at a card or even several cards. We're looking at a mission wing. We'll be talking about the bosses of the first full wing of Icecrown Citadel, the lower Citadel. Apologies for the lack of deep lore content of late. I know some didn't appreciate so many 5 legendary being released in a row, but sometimes there's just stuff you need to attend to in real life. Thanks for your patience. Anyway, some of these bosses will have a decent amount of lore, some will have barely any, but let's give them a look. Let's start with a boss with barely any lore. The first encounter in the lower Spire, Lord Marrowgar. Like in Hearthstone, Marrowgar was the first boss encounter in the World of Warcraft Icecrown Citadel raid. 2 of the encounter's most recognisable techniques have made their way into Marrowgar's Hearthstone encounter too. The Bone Spike card represents the spell Bone Spike Graveyard. In WoW, Marrowgar would hurl a massive spike of bone to impale a member of the raid party. Unless dealt with, this giant bone fragment was capable of huge damage. It would tick for 10% of the hero's health every second and last for 5 minutes, or until the hero had died. The spike could be destroyed by fellow raid members, but until then it could be quite the challenge for the healers. The card in Hearthstone does a good job of portraying this move's devastating effect. Bone Storm is perhaps Marrowgar's most iconic move, mainly due to the fact that he'd yell the name at the top of his voice every time he performed it in WoW. Bone Storm! Marrowgar would spin round and round, inflicting continuous damage to the raid party. Depending on how close raid members were to Marrowgar, the more damage the technique did. The closer they were, the more damage they took. Through the course of the Bone Storm, Marrowgar would select 4 targets, launching himself at them throughout. The move would also cause lines of cold flame to spread out along the floor. The Hearthstone card is nowhere near as devastating as the WoW version, but does represent the AoE nature of the move. Marrowgar's ability to heal his entire health pool in next to no time is specific to Hearthstone. However, if heroes looted his axe, Thrall, the Bone Arbiter, also depicted in Hearthstone, they, when wielding it, would have a chance on hit to steal life from their target enemy. So something relating to the giant amalgamation of bone would heal those that possessed it. Marrowgar was the first of his kind to make an appearance in Warcraft, a Bone Wraith. A skeletal monstrosity fused together from the bones of many corpses. Sadly, not too much is known about the Bone Wraiths in general, though it would be fairly safe to assume that Marrowgar, at least, is the handiwork of the Lich King, created to prevent any that tried from reaching the Master's Sanctum. It would appear though that it is not only the necromantic powers of the Lich King that are capable of bringing Bone Wraiths into being. Several have made an appearance in the Warcraft universe following the defeat of Arthas, well outside the reaches of the now subdued Scourge under the command of Lich King Bolvar. The first Bone Wraith to appear after Marrowgar would be in the Cataclysm expansion. Earthrager Patar could be found in the Halls of Origination dungeon. These halls, constructed millennia ago by the Titanic Watchers, were investigated by adventurers trying to find the ancient treasures deep within. They also aided Brann Bronzebeard with his investigation of the structure, which would lead to finding that the structures in the region of Uldum could erase all life from Azeroth. As heroes wandered through the Halls of Origination, they would make their way through a long corridor which led to a section of the halls exposed to the elements. The tomb of the Earthrager. The sands around the tomb were littered with bones, creatures that had been purified by the Temple Guardian An-Hur. The Guardian had been empowered with the ability to wield the Holy Light by the Titanic Watchers and was entrusted with judging the purity of those that entered the halls. From the bones littering the sands around the tomb of the Earthrager, not many passed An-Hur's judgment. The heroes did, by killing him. How Patar came into being is not specified. Is he an amalgamation of the purified's bones, or a different beast entirely. Either way, he stood as a second line of defence within the halls of Origination. Behind him loomed the tomb of the Earthrager. What this was in actuality was the Re-Origination device, which would be responsible for purging Azeroth of life if it were ever activated. Ptah had various tools to aid it in its defence. It could launch flaming bolts at its opponents, force spikes of earth to erupt beneath heroes' feet, and smash opponents with its flaming axe. At one point during the fight, Ptah would collapse to the ground. The ensuing earthquake would wake the dead and scarabs below the sands, cause a monstrous whirlwind and whirlpools of shifting sand. Reforming, Ptah attempted to finish off the heroes, but was defeated. Another Bone Wraith made its way into the game with the Warlords of Draenor expansion, Soulscythe. Captain Taylor had been a key part of the Alliance campaigns in the Underwater Vashj'ir and their time upon the continent of Pandaria. However, after establishing his garrison on Draenor in the Spires of Iraq region, his entire camp would soon be gutted of life. Heroes ventured into Taylor's camp, curious as to what had happened to the noble captain. They found the streets now littered with undead. It transpired that Taylor's subordinate, Ethiel, had betrayed his fellows. When discovered, Ethiel would bind Taylor's and several other spirits together to form Soulscythe. Upon the Necromancer and the Bone Wraith's defeat, Taylor's spirit would be freed. Legion, in comparison to other WoW expansions, saw a spike in the number of Bone Wraiths added to the game. Tharkith would come after the expansion's release, being added for the Broken Shore patch, a named enemy in the region. Soul Reaper was a rare mob also found on the Broken Shore. After stealing the body of Illidan's Stormrage from the Watchers, Gul'Dan would take the Night Elf demon's body to Blackrook Hold upon the Broken Shore. Here he would sever Illidan's soul from his physical form. The dark magics Gul'Dan used to achieve his ends would bring the tormented souls of the well-respected Ravencrest clan back to their ancestral home. The residual soul energy would merge three of the family's line into a horrific Bone Wraith, the Amalgam of Souls. This being could turn a hero's own soul into a weapon against them. Upon the Amalgam's defeat, Lady Valandrus Ravencrest, Lord Etheldrim Ravencrest, and Staelis Rivermore were freed from their torment. Gorwing the Awakened was the risen minion of Liandra Sunstrider. Liandra was a distant relative of Blood Elven royalty, though her branch of the family held no claim to the throne. After the betrayal and death of Prince Kael'Thas Sunstrider, Liandra became obsessed with finding the royal line's legendary blade, Fellow Malorn, hoping it would validate her claim to the throne, despite the fact she was told on several occasions by the wise Aethys Sunreaver that it was a fool's errand. Liandra's quest led her to Northrend, finding out that Kael had lost the sword and it had now been taken to Icecrown Citadel. Liandra would find the sword resting on a dais within the empty halls of Icecrown. As she reached for the blade, the door of the chamber holding Fellow Malorn sealed shut. Liandra would expire within the chamber and be risen as undead by the Lich King. The king entrusted Liandra with Fellow Malorn, a powerful weapon to use in the coming third invasion of the Burning Legion, but it would not be her who wielded it against the demons. When word reached Aethys as to the blade's location, a gifted mage would be sent in search of Fellow Malorn. They would best Liandra and her towering construct Gorwing and wield it themselves in the fight against the Legion. Deathbringer Saurfang was once a well-respected orc before becoming the blood-curdling Death Knight. Dranosh Saurfang was born on the planet of Draenor, son of a legend among his people, Varok. Presumably early in Dranosh's life, his mother would pass. His father promised Dranosh's mother on her deathbed that their son would always remain safe and pure. This would not become an easy task for any father among the Orcish horde when their race was corrupted by the demonic Burning Legion. Many of the Orcs drinking the blood of Mannoroth, giving them great power, but working them up into a crazed frenzy. After dominating and befouling their own planet, the Orcs would move via portal in an attempt to claim the world of Azeroth as their own. Before crossing over, Varok had the Elders of Garadar hide Dranosh away. These Orcs had remained untainted by the Legion's influence, having been quarantined within the village to prevent the spread of the Redpox disease. This prevented these Orcs from consuming the demon blood or being tainted by the fell energies of the Orcish warlocks. It would be revealed when adventurers travelled back to Draenor, the world now the Shattered Outland, that Varok's plan had worked. Dranosh had grown into a healthy, powerful Mag'har, brown-skinned Orcs who had not been tainted by the Legion, though they would not find him in the best condition. The Murkblood, a tribe of broken Draenei and enemies to the Mag'har, were becoming increasingly hostile. A force under the command of General Ortor had sacked the Mag'har post of Sunspring, killing thousands of the Orcs and claiming it as their own. This not only murdered many of the Mag'har, but ruined any chance of peace between the Mag'har and the broken Draenei, something the Kurenai faction had been looking to achieve. After a raid on Garadar by the Murkblood, a group of adolescent Orcs, including Dranosh, formed a war party to seek vengeance upon the Murkblood. The rest of the Mag'har urged them not to, but the young Orcs' judgments were blinded by rage. The Orcs' quest led them to Sunspring Post. They attacked the Murkblood, but were overwhelmed by the Broken's numbers. Most of the party fell in combat. Dranosh would be the only survivor, sustaining heavy injuries and escaping by the skin of his teeth. Dranosh later recounted his experience of the fight. Something took hold of him, a rage so intense the whole of the young Orcs being burned, a heat that wilted the living, that felt as if the blood in Dranosh's veins was being incinerated. His last memory of the battle was him standing alone, the rest of his companions dead, surrounded by 30 Murkblood. He would black out, awaking sometime later, heavily implying the Orc had butchered those that surrounded him. Having not seen the young Orcs return after waiting a whole week, the other Mag'har became very worried. Farseer Korhuk enlisted the aid of adventurers to try and track down the war party. The adventurer found Dranosh, who requested their aid. After losing his friends, he felt an overwhelming shame and a need for vengeance, but he, a lone injured Orc, would not be able to exact that vengeance. He asked that the hero enter Sunspring and murder as many of the evil Murkblood as they possibly could, a challenge the hero took on with gusto. While there, the adventurer would also kill Ortor, as requested by Farseer Margadesh. The scent of blood hanging heavy on the hero, they returned to a prideful Dranosh. While he had not been able to assist in the killing, he was deeply thankful for the hero's aid. He then requested the hero do him another favour. After what Dranosh had experienced, he did not feel it right to return to Garadar. He believed his destiny lay elsewhere, and that he would fulfill a great purpose someday. He asked the adventurer return to Farseer Korhuk and tell him that the young Orc could not come back, that he must walk the earth. Upon being told, the Farseer stared at the ground in contemplation. Wiping away a single tear, he said simply, "The Son is the Father. May the spirits have mercy on those that stand in his way." Having been reunited with his father on Azeroth and surviving the Lich King's invasion upon the Orcish capital of Orgrimmar, Dranosh would travel with his father and Grom Hellscream as part of the Warsong Offensive, the main army of the Horde in Northrend. Dranosh had clearly earned the trust and respect of his father, as, acting as Garrosh's second, Varok would place Dranosh in command of the Kor'kron Vanguard. This Horde base lay just before Angrathar, the Wrathgate. This giant Saronite wall was an entrance into the fortress of the Lich King himself. Icecrown citadel. Showing further respect to his son, Varok had gifted him with his armour and axe. Both Horde and Alliance planned to storm Angrathar to gain access to Icecrown. Rather than letting the bitter hatreds of Alliance and Horde cloud his judgment, Dranosh proved himself a shrewd diplomat, maintaining cordial relations with the Alliance forces stationed outside the Wrathgate as well, under the command of Bolvar Fordragon. After aiding Overlord Agmar in the settlement of Agmar's Hammer in Dragonblight, the Overlord would send Horde adventurers Dranosh's way to aid in the assault of the Wrathgate. Before this could happen though, the strafing assaults from the Frostworms of Dragonblight needed to be stopped. In order to deal with the worms though, the adventurers would need to venture through the Graves of Dragons, an act Dranosh felt should be given permission by the Dragons of Wyrmrest Temple. He told the hero to seek audience with Alexstrasza. Following Alexstrasza's counsel, the hero was able to stop the Scourge forces from raising more Frostworms, and with that, the Horde were ready to join the assault upon the Wrathgate.
Take the lead! For Morderon! For the Alliance! Back, you mindless wretches! Fight on, brothers!
Rise up, sons of the Horde! Blood and glory await us! Marrowgar! For the Horde!
I was wondering if you'd show up.
I couldn't let the Alliance have all the fun today.
The blood of your father, of your people, demands justice! Come forth, coward, and answer for your crimes!
You speak of justice, of cowardice. I will show you the justice of the grave, and the true meaning of fear.
Enough talk! Let it be finished!
You will pay for all the lives you've stolen, traitor!
Boldly stated, but there is nothing you can...
What?
Did you think we had forgotten? Did you think we had forgiven? Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken!
Sylvanas.
Death to the Scourge! And death to the living!
This isn't over.
Now, all can see. This is the hour of the Forsaken.
We're finished. No escape for any of us.
The attack from the Forsaken was unexpected by the Alliance and Horde. This prompted Sylvanas to deal with the traitors among her ranks, and the Alliance assaulted Undercity to avenge their fallen soldiers. With assistance from Vol'jin and Thrall, Sylvanas was able to put an end to the uprising led by her major domo, the demon Varimathras. The Alliance found and killed Putress, the Forsaken that proclaimed death to the Scourge and death to the living. The Alliance and Horde forces almost came to blows if not for the timely intervention of Jaina Proudmoore. Back at the Wrathgate, all that remained of Dranosh was his shattered armour. Alexstrasza requested Horde heroes deliver this to Varok. Understandably upset, the High Overlord found peace in the fact his son had died a hero, an honourable end for an Orc. Varok was full of pride for his son's heroic actions and would ensure the armour would be placed upon a pyre at the ancestral grounds of Nagrand in honour of his memory. If only this had been the last of Dranosh. His body was retrieved by agents of the Scourge. His soul trapped within the Lich King's blade Frostmourne, Dranosh would be revived as the Death Knight, Deathbringer Saurfang, the most powerful Death Knight ever risen by the Lich King. For quite some time Dranosh's fate was unknown, though adventurers would gain a clue to this while fighting the old god Yogg-Saron. In a vision induced by the old god, heroes would see a man tortured by the Lich King, Arthas attempting to change him into a Death Knight. Taunting his victim, which would later be found out to be Bolvar, the Lich King informs the figure, "I will break you as I broke him." A heavy-set figure would stand next to the Lich King, covered completely in shadow, but unmistakably the shape of an Orc. The time would come for Horde and Alliance to raid the Lich King's imposing citadel. After the Horde and Alliance gunships clashed, adventurers would make their way to the Deathbringer's Rise. As they made their way further onto the platform, a familiar figure burst through the doors at the other side.
Champions, watch your backs! The Scourge have been caught!
Join me, Father. Join me and we will crush this world in the name of the Scourge, for the glory of the Lich King.
My boy died at the Wrathgate. I am here only to collect his body.
Stubborn and old, what chance do you have? I am stronger and more powerful than you ever were.
We named him Dranosh. It means Heart of Draenor in Orcish. I would not let the warlocks take him. My boy would be safe, hidden away by the elders of Garadar. I made a promise to his mother before she died, that I would cross the dark portal alone. Whether I lived or died, my son would be safe, untainted. Today, I fulfill that promise.
Pathetic old orc. Come then, heroes. Come and face the might of the Scourge.
Saurfang would launch himself at the adventurers not caught within his spellwork. Saurfang was a blood Death Knight, making him extremely durable and capable of damaging many foes at once. He could cause an enemy's blood to boil, create novas of blood and mark an adversary so that every time the Deathbringer struck them, he would mend his wounds. Every 40 seconds, Saurfang would summon a small army of blood beasts to his side. These ravenous beasts were highly resistant to attacks from area of effect assaults and disease. They could also work themselves up into a frenzy with scent of blood, tracking down a target which they would slow and deal more damage to. The blood beasts in Hearthstone differ, combining Saurfang's ability to heal himself with the swarming of the blood beasts themselves. Eventually though, the heroes would best the Lich King's strongest Death Knight.
I am released.
You will have a proper ceremony in Nagrand, next to the pyres of your mother and ancestors. Honor young heroes, no matter how dire the battle. Never forsake it.
Despite a tragic end, Dranosh's legacy lives on. Thrall even admitted when trying to choose his successor that Dranosh would have been ideal, the convictions of his father, but with youth on his side. Thrall would crown Garrosh warchief before going off in search of what may be causing the elemental unrest upon Azeroth before the Cataclysm expansion. Dranosh clearly left an impression on Garrosh too, the new warchief naming the Dranoshar blockade after him. Upon Dranosh's death, even the King of Stormwind, Varian Wrynn, acknowledged the Orcs' courage and heroism. The Lady Deathwhisper encounter in Hearthstone actually references two encounters in the Icecrown Citadel raid. Lady Deathwhisper herself was one encounter, and Valithra the Dreamwalker was another. Deathwhisper is one of the only two female liches to make their way into WoW, the other being Instructor Chillheart. She was an instructor at Scholarmance, a school founded by Kael'Thas to train prospective necromancers for the Scourge. She taught Introduction to the Dark Arts. Travelling from Northrend, she instilled discipline into her students, harshly punishing any who disappointed her. Any who attacked her would find she was an expert of wielding the icy chill of the north to her will, and would even use the surrounding library to her advantage. Deathwhisper's title was Supreme Overseer of the Cult of the Damned. The cult was created by Kael'Thas before he became a Lich. It was composed of the living, loyal to the Scourge. Thanks to the work of the cult, the Scourge gains a foothold in the Kingdom of Lordaeron. The cult used plague cauldrons to spread the Lich King's plague of undeath over wide areas. Being living members of the Scourge, the cult could easily infiltrate cities and towns to plant the cauldrons. Very quickly, the plague spread through the kingdom, killing the population and raising them as minions of the Scourge. The Cult of the Damned became a permanent part of the Scourge, their ability to infiltrate the Lich King's enemies being indispensable. Even when their founder Kael'Thas was defeated in Naxxramas, the cult's work continued, all eager to gain immortality through undeath. It's likely after Kael'Thas' defeat, Deathwhisper took over as leader of the Cult of the Damned. Members would train on the walls of Icecrown Citadel while Deathwhisper preached to members of the cult within the Citadel's Obituary of the Damned.
You have found your way here, because you are among the few gifted with true vision in a world cursed with blindness. You can see through the fog that hangs over this world like a shroud and grasp where true power lies. Fix your eyes upon your crude hands, the sinew, the soft meat, the dark blood coursing within. It is a weakness, a crippling flaw, a joke played by the creators upon their own creations. The sooner you come to accept your condition as a defect, the sooner you will find yourselves in a position to transcend it. Through our master, all things are possible. His power is without limit, and his will unbending. Those who oppose him will be destroyed utterly. And those who serve wholly, unquestioningly, with utter devotion of mind and soul, elevated to heights beyond your ken.
When adventurers attacked Deathwhisper, they not only had to deal with a powerful Lich, but all of the faithful Cult of the Damned members that came to aid her. While Deathwhisper stood protected behind a mana barrier, she would empower her cult faithful and reanimate them when they fell. Deathwhisper also sent bolts of shadow energy out at her attackers, spread death and decay, and could dominate the mind of those that attacked her. When heroes managed to break through Deathwhisper's mana barrier, she would change tactic, attacking with ice magic and summoning shades to attack her adversaries. After the heroes defeated Deathwhisper, an elevator would descend to bring the heroes deeper into the citadel. Valeithra was a green dragon captured by the Scourge, an encounter that came a lot later than Deathwhisper in Icecrown. The Scourge planned to use the green dragon as a test subject for their own nefarious ends. Luckily, those ends were not found out, as the dragon would be saved by heroes. Valeithra was heavily injured and needed to be healed before she could be rescued. The Scourge were not going to let Valeithra escape easily. Skeletons, zombies, abominations and liches attacked, while Geists suppressed the amount of healing the Drake received. Valeithra did her best to aid the adventurers, opening up portals to a dream world where healers could become empowered. When fully healed, Valeithra let out a mighty blast, destroying the Scourge in the area. So, there you have it, the lore behind the encounters of the lower Spire. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe and share this video around. If you've enjoyed the art, I've done my best to credit the artists in the description below. To keep up to date with 6 videos, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to follow my Warcraft streams, follow us on Twitch, the first of which will be happening 30 minutes from the release of this video, so come join me. Until next time, happy Hearthstoning.